in a late evening bus, too stunned to slip into the genial ritual of post-movie analysis, too numbed by the serendipitous shock of stumbling into a moment that would forever alter our expectations of Tamil cinema. We knew we could no longer resign ourselves to the perfunctory cinematography and tinsel-strewn sets and an incestuous ethos birthed from Tamil films over the years. We knew now that we could not only dream about international standards of filmic achievement, but also attain them. Today, a quarter of a century older, I realize that we may have overestimated Mani Ratnam and undervalued the impact of the pioneers before him on Tamil cinema. But such is the impetuousness of adolescence. The body blow dealt by the film drove out reasoning and rationality. What was left was pure physical sensation. At this point, I suppose I should define we. I refer to people like me, born in Madras in the 1970s and ripening into cinematic awareness in the decade that followed, in Mani Ratnam's decade. We are possibly the most qualified to write about Mani Ratnam. We might also be the least qualified. Others, born in earlier and later decades, did not feel his impact the way we did, but they, shorn of our hyperbolic adoration, are probably better equipped to pin down his place in the Tamil cinema continuum. We couldn't, because to us, he wasn't just a filmmaker. And he didn't just make films. Mona Ragam onwards, and with the grand exceptions of Nayakan and Thalapathy, which wove riffs around the adult experience, he was a zeitgeist-defining showman who propped up in front of us mirrors into our selves, our young, urban selves. No one, just no one had put on screen what we thought, what we felt, what we dreamed the way Mani Ratnam did. Mani Ratnam was certainly not the first filmmaker who animated his films with the lifeblood of the young. During the course of these conversations, he revealed that he grew up enthralled to the taboo-splintering dramas of K. Balachandar, so attuned to the rebellions of youth, and before KB, there were directors like Sridhar, who in the 1960s bequeathed a youthful exuberance to films like Kada Likka Nera Milai, 2.5-hour romantic romp, which belied a title that sighed that there was no time for love. But among other things, the girls in Sridhar's movie threatened to burst out of salwar kameezas glued to their zaptic frames. This enslavement to voluptuousness was our parents' youth, not ours. Our fantasies were forged over visions of a sylph-like Amala in a pink sleeveless top, swaying to music from her Walkman, as the backlighting bestowed on her an entirely warranted urban goddess aura. And if there's another artifact of pop culture that hotwired itself into the very being of the Tamil youth the way Agni Natchatiram did, I'm not aware of it. Call it solipsism, call it tunnel vision, I call it the unvarnished truth. The sun that you saw in the opening credits of that film, scudding through clouds into a clear sky and blinding the screen with its brilliance, there was no better visual metaphor for the Mani Ratnam of the era. He was dazzling us with the trail he was blazing, and we were the first to see the light. Just as words bind themselves better to pristine parchment than to palimpsests, his images sank into our souls. The older generation, having watched a lot more cinema and having weathered a lot more trailblazing in the movies, was more guarded about welcoming Mani Ratnam, as if to embrace him would be to wallow in the shallow pools of youthful faddishness. It was a while before they realized that Mani Ratnam was no fad, that he was here to stay, and that he would go on, after Roja, to make the kind of movies that they wanted him to make, and that, in a sense, he'd become them. Hence my claim that no one knows or feels about Mani Ratnam the way we do. That scene in Agni Natchatiram where Harold Faltermeyer's theme for Beverly Hills Cop bounces off the walls as Amala and her girlfriends anticipate their first taste of nicotine with stolen cigarettes, that was us. That was the garish synth music that blared from our two-in-ones. That was the forbidden forest fascination that cigarettes held for us. Mani Ratnam didn't judge smoking, and if this made him irresponsible in the eyes of the grown-ups, it only made him cooler to us. Most filmmakers then were adults who left their youth far behind, and their portrayals of the young harked back to their times. Mani Ratnam, on the other hand, seemed to be one of us. Someone who, in front of his parents, would pore over cyclo-style sheets from brilliant tutorials over late-night cups of tea from a thermos, only hidden in those impenetrable thickets of IIT problems would be a comic.